All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues episode number 266. As you're logging in, if you guys would be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Dialogues. My dialogue partner today, while he's setting up his own live share and what have you, he's making his second appearance on the program. He is the founder of Focus Counterviolence and is the author of the recently released War Room, a Counterviolence Playbook. There we go. All right. So, Mike VanBeek, welcome back to the Jeet Kune Dialogues.
Hey, Dwight, thanks for having me. Good to be back here, brother. How are you?
I'm good, man. So listen, a counterviolence playbook. Now, that's an interesting, is there significance to the use of the word playbook as opposed to guidebook or manual or what have you?
Because I wanted the playbook not to be, a playbook isn't etched in stone. Mm-hmm. You know, there's some pliability to a playbook that can be adjusted based on whom you're fighting and the context within which you're using it in.
Yeah. You know, the reason why I ask you that is because as I was reading it, I noticed you have a lot of it appears to me to be proprietary language. Like you right? So for example, there's a part there where it's the serving size factor, right? And whether it's a drive-through situation or a dine-in situation, right? Fantastic. I love it, right? But I wanted to ask you, so where did that type of thing come from? Making up names for your own concepts and that type of thing. Where'd that come from?
Well, I don't think it's an original idea. I think people do it like, people like Eddie Bravo are really famous in jiu-jitsu world for coming up with weird names that didn't come from Brazil, the Twister and the Eagle, whatever, right? So what happens is the reason I did it was because I'm trying to make a connection between me and my audience that's digestible. So that they understand better. And so if I say to someone and I use martial arts language, it's like if I'm using language that coders, people who do coding in computers, they have a certain language and things that they say. But I don't do computers. So if they want to educate me or at least get me into understanding about what would be a better purchase, they would have to speak in a language I would understand. And so when I was differentiating between as a business owner or someone who's seeking to help people and use Jeet Kune as a way as a service by which to help people, I have to be able to reach those people and understand that some of those people don't want to spend 5 years getting levels and become an apprentice, and they just want to drive through and get what they need and get going. And they want to take a 90 minutes, and for them, it's enough. And
it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
But if you're going to dine in, you might want a little bit of steaks. You might want a little bit of knife. You might want a little bit of energy drills.
Yeah. The thing is that it's kind of a happy accident. On the past 2 Wednesdays on the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast, I was talking about the best books on Jeet Kune. And as I was doing the research for that, I realized that there are Jeet Kune books that you don't know are Jeet Kune books because they're not books about Bruce Lee. They're not books about Jeet Kune, right? In fact, I think Bruce Lee, the name Bruce Lee appears maybe 3 times in this book, and Jeet Kune maybe 3 times, right? But it's a Jeet Kune book.
Yes. Right? Well, one of the reasons I view it that way, and this is one of the things that I think I'm one of those probably devil's advocates in the Jeet Kune community, where some people might not even call me a Jeet Kune person. I'm not sure, but you have a lot of really Like I was watching your thing with Chris Kent. You know, there's just so much history that you have on here, and so much experience in the Jeet Kune Do world that I honestly don't have. And so when people ask me certain Bruce Lee-esque questions, and I have a picture of Bruce Lee on my wall and there's books, I'm just not like the Robert Torres kind of like this guy has like a museum, I think, right? Right. The artifacts, like I am like that, but I'm not. And so you would know the process by which Bruce arrived at Jeet Kune Do was something like started off with have an experience, correct?
Yeah.
Right? In the way, and then what is the second one? Decide whether that experience was useful or negative, and take the usefulness out of it.
Right. Yeah.
And then
So research your own experience.
Research your own experience.
Right. Absorb what is useful. Right. Reject what is useless.
Yes.
Add what is specifically your own.
Yes. Right. Now, I think, and I probably will get some slack for saying this, but I think that's Bruce's process. Sorry, I know. Right? So it's so unlike the Jeet Kune Do thing to say. So I think that Bruce's experience as a martial artist, and again, I'm not this historian, but when you follow the tracks of his evolution and his logic, because he's an extremely logical person, and so he has an experience and he researches it. And then he comes up with this thing. As a martial artist, it's easiest for me to win if I do what? Intercept.
Yeah.
That's his experience. Every time he's training, every time he's sparring, every time he's moving around, this is his experience. And he tunes his physicality. He tunes his drills. He tunes everything to fit that strategy. His tactics being his tools, his kicks, his punches, his G-Tech, his oblique, his low jab, all are meant to intercept. They're not meant just to exchange in punches, right? And so that's what led him. I think what people fail to sometimes often admit is that maybe Bruce didn't have an experience whereby he was a victim. Maybe all of his knowledge came from being a martial artist who were fighting other martial artists, and not the same as the person who's somebody's trying to rape her in the back. It's a different context, and this is where you'll see other styles form. Like I think combatives is a very doorman-esque. And so if you look at the people who do combatives, the people who are, you know, European and they're doormen and they're very combative and they're hammer, you know what I'm saying? Their experience leads them to believe that that's the best way. Whether they, you know, and so my research of my experience of whatever my walk has led me to believe gave me the realization that to apply Jeet Kune Do and its interception, I had to deconstruct violence a little bit. What did violence look like? And so the attitude came to me wasn't about what style you are using. So if I was to ask somebody, hey, listen, we're going hunting and we're going to bring a spear. Anybody who trains with me knows this thing. It's even in the book. We're going to bring a spear. We're going to bring a bow and arrow. We're going to bring a gun, shotgun, and we're going to bring a blowgun. We're going to bring a slingshot. We're going to bring some foul language. We're going to bring my cousin Vinny. We're going to bring a baseball bat. So we have all these options of tools that we could use. So we're going hunting. So pick your tool. And so, of course, everybody says gun. And then the obvious question is, well, what if we're fishing? Then the best tool to bring would be a fishing pole, right?
Yeah.
And the example goes on. But what we're doing is we're flipping that. Ask yourself, what's hunting you? That will determine the context by which you will be intercepting. You'll be intercepting as a victim who is being disproportionately and outnumbered via the weapons, size, or numbers, right? This is taking Jeet Kune Do and making applications to a modern day application. Not just saying I know the history of it, but how can I apply it now and today to better serve the world and the community? Because that's what we're supposed to do with Jeet Kune Do. Serve the world, be servants, right? Of this art to help people. How can I better help that person if I don't understand what's hunting them?
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you about that because um, throughout the book, I get a sense that, you know, tell me if I got this right. Violence has also evolved, okay? And in some instances, martial art training, which is supposed to be able to prepare you for a violent encounter, has not kept up, has not evolved alongside the way violence has evolved. Right? Am I right?
Correct. I would say that when you see the evolution, you see it in UFC. You
Yeah.
see it in the sport. A sport will organically morph and push its boundaries till its fullest. And so what started off originally in the UFC as style versus style morphed into a three-pronged set of stand-up striking, clinch, and ground.
Mhm.
All of the Olympic sports rolled into one. Yes? Your pancration, your judo, your savate,
Yeah.
all the things. You can do all of them in one. You could even trap, but so be it.
Mhm.
Right? But the parameters of that set its limitations. So it grew till it could grow. Now what you see the advancement in is body morphism. You see someone who's 6'3" and still can stay at a good 200 pounds and has an incredible reach. You're looking at a severely dangerous fighter in that arena. So the parameters had been reached, the evolution had been reached, and now the evolution is going to squeeze organically within the fighters themselves. There was a time where high kicks didn't work until Mark the Hammer Coleman got kicked in the face and he went out like that. And all of a sudden people were throwing high kicks. And so
Right.
The evolution of violence, people look at that sport. Meanwhile, the evolution of violence is happening, but the martial arts did not, and the sport did, but not the martial arts version. So if there's like traditional martial arts, sports martial arts, competition, and then reality based. So if we could just tie them up in those three branches, right?
Right.
You would say that one of those evolved because of the platform of the UFC or no holds barred fighting or whatever it once was called. It morphed into what it is today. It evolved, gave them the parameter. Martial arts, because of a lot of reasons, one being the dedication to factual historic, like this is the way Bruce wanted it. This is so the loyalty to that is preventing a certain amount of evolution through new experience.
Yeah.
Well, it's been my experience, man, that I can't get that interception on the first shot. Why? I didn't know it was coming. Go figure. I didn't have the distance to G-Tech him.
Yeah.
I didn't work out quite. It can, but you have to make adjustments and you have to evolve with it. You have to have two people sitting in front of your face saying foul things to you that would ordinarily throw you into an emotionally otherwise disabled state. Right? There's a certain psychology that happens when one is intimidated. And if you look at what's hunting you, the goal of what's hunting you, we'll just call it violence, kind of like keep it seated into the dark force and versus the Jedi thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the dark side says, how do I win without working? So I can't be physically better than you. You're a Jeet Kune guy. So how do I win? I hit you when you're not looking. I bring more people. If I was violent and wanted to have a Floyd Mayweather record, what would I need to do? Be physically fit? No, I'm lazy. I don't want to work. This is why I'm taking your stuff, my friend. Right? I like your drums and I'm going to take them. You drum, yes? You play? Yes?
Yeah.
I'm going to take them. Right?
Right.
So me and my boys, I'm going to go, hey, man, I hear you're the greatest martial artist. Boom, 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 pow, from behind. And I take your stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even need, not one lesson. Not one lesson.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a different thing hunting you that uses a different strategy than we use. We use intercepting. But if we're really intercepting, we would have a pre-violent skill set that would be able to identify pre-threat cues and pre-violent situations.
Right.
And if you talk to people who do work security, you'll see that they develop a skill set to recognize the fight before it happens. This is the skill set of a true interceptor.
Let me ask you something, Michael. If one was to apply the concept of reverse engineering to as many aspects as possible of one's life, you'd end up creating a new creature, wouldn't you?
You would create the best opposite of yourself, I guess. Yes. Like,
Could you use it to change the aspects of yourself with which you're not happy?
well, absolutely. It's just insight, hindsight, and insight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But that was the goal with violence, was to reverse engineer it, to find out what made it tick, so that you could intercept it.
Right.
Now, here's the second stitch of that. The second stitch of that is that you don't know what's coming. And because you're a good person, how do you know you're a good person? Because you wouldn't be dedicated to a craft like Jeet Kune if you weren't. Maybe you have some social issues. Maybe you have some other, but everything being equal, you're probably a good person. And you probably don't want to fight. And hopefully martial arts will help you not have to, but that's not true either.
Right.
You see, sports does a thing for you, whether you like it or not. And this is part of that reverse engineering. A lot of people will step into a martial arts school with a superhero dream. And this was me. As a young boy who was very insecure, all the makings for it, right? No special story. We all got a sad one. I wanted something that allowed me to win the fight, feel good about myself, and not have to face my own fragilities.
Yeah.
So the sport hits you with a lot of honesty. Put your damn hands up or I'm going to hit you. Whew. You got tapped out. That's honest. You can't fake that. You can't pull that off. There's no demo here, right? And so there were some things about the sport getting picked up by university wrestlers and thrown through the air. There was something very insightful about that, and saying there is a crack in my armor and I need to mend it. And that was humility. And I have to know that I have to step outside of the art, right? And so martial arts became that for people. It became a way not to fight. And what I've tried to reintroduce to people is you have to have a modicum of sports humility, because I don't do the sport, I farm the sport. So I teach people how to do the sports because I need their body mechanics. Sport has tremendous body mechanic, great footwork, great torque, line familiarization, spatial relationship, to be able to handle physical and emotional pressure. These are great attributes from the sport. So I have enough of them. Now I'm going to use martial arts to cheat that.
Right.
Right. Now, that's a drive. That's a dine-in setup. A drive-through, you have to give them the pull the alarm, panic button, hammer fist, elbow, push away, run and scream. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's the percentage? I imagine that the percentage of people, it's more drive-through than dine-in, huh?
Well, if you're a marketing person, and I'm sure a lot of your people watching have some have a school, have some students, and there's levels, right? I teach to my buddies out of my garage.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go to a community center and we kind of work together to get a couple students, or a gym, and we kind of do this, and then you get your own place, right? And as you traverse this landscape of business, as you try to maintain and hold yourself to a higher level of virtue where you're really trying to help people, and so you may make a living but maybe not a lot of money, you want to still do a good business. And you have to recognize that in a marketing, you would say 90 minutes are where I'm going to find my new students. Your best customer is your last one. Yeah. So I have programs. Most schools have one class and they break it down into age groups. I have programs. So if you want, I have a lot of middle-aged men who have been sitting behind a desk for a while and they lost their physical edge. They don't feel very capable physically to protect their family, and they're now a teenage daughter. And so they come to me and I give them what's called a crucible or an atlas, a 30 or 40-hour program where they immerse themselves for 2 to 3 hours a week with me for 3.5 months.
Right.
In a private thing. But if I just ran private lessons and I ran them forever, that person will dissipate, right? I get them a beginning and an end, and then in a 99 percentile, I still have almost everyone that started me within that course.
So
and
they,
still
they
train privately with me
right.
because they didn't make the commitment at first forever.
I'm thinking of how Chick-fil-A, right?
Chick-fil-A,
Okay.
you're funny.
Yeah, I'm thinking how Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A has huge drive-through lines, right?
Yes,
You know, um,
they specialize.
yeah, yeah. And then if you go inside, there's a huge line inside also. But I've never seen as many people dining in, right? I've never seen as many people dining in. However, the people in the drive-through, they go back all the time.
Yeah. Well, now listen. Now, there's also another theory to that, and that is that you go to a 5-star steakhouse, you ain't going through the drive-through, baby. So what are you serving?
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah.
So, but you have a provision for both. And that's the point. You have a provision for both. You
Hmm.
have something that says, because that's the way to help people the best. And then people change from within, right?
Right.
Generally,
Right.
people change from within. And so you'll say, well, because to be honest with you, people are used to a certain martial arts configuration through the Karate Kid series,
Hmm.
Cobra Kai. They're used to a lot of things from movies. So they either think to myself, I'm going to go to this UFC gym and get the crap knocked out of me. I won't be able to go to work. And it really will expose all of the fact that I am fat and out of shape, right? But don't worry. Right. But I mean, who's going to get into a cage at 20, 30 something years old? You just know. Right.
Right.
So
Hmm.
unless you get them young, and listen, we all want that person. But so people are used to either that UFC Conor McGregor beatdown, or they're used to uniforms and forms. And so I think I occupy a little bit of that middle ground, and I do it
Yeah.
intentionally. I do it
Yeah.
intentionally. Yeah.
I'd
Because
say,
I still have a group class. We still put on music and box and train, very JKD-ish, you know what I mean?
right.
But in a business format, I need both. I need a drive-through. I need a reason to reach out to people that isn't the same reason as the last time. And
You
I
have
became capable to do that because I myself went and trained with other systems.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that you epitomize the four tenets of Jeet Kune Do. Now, of course, the criticism of that will be, oh, but Bruce Lee never said absorb what is useful. It came from somebody else who got it from somebody else. So, there'll be an argument about the
Well, it doesn't.
authenticity of it, or whatever.
I don't think it changes the fact that that's the process that he used, whether he said it or
No,
not. He said
right,
there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are attributed to him that he didn't originally say. Like use
right.
what is used for it. He didn't originally. He borrowed that from somebody because he was a smart enough person to apply it to his life, and he only said it when it became applicable, and he applied it to his life. Only then did he say it through realization.
Yeah. Isn't it ridiculous that people who follow that principle, right? They follow the Bruce Lee principle of applying what makes sense to you. But if you don't do it, you get criticized for doing it for yourself, right? In other words, you don't do it and talk about Bruce Lee this, Bruce Lee that, Bruce Lee the next. You just do it. So it's
That's right.
invisible, right? You're applying a Jeet Kune Do principle, but it's invisible.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, well, if you're not talking the Jeet Kune Do talk, right? It's so funny. It's so funny because you're a living example that Jeet Kune Do is what you need it to be.
For you.
Yes.
Yes.
You
And I
see?
believe in interception. Now, listen, when I kickbox with guys in my school, I attack by draw all the time. I create this Philly shell, like this Mayweather, right? I do this
Mhm.
Philly shell, and I'm always creating just enough space, and everybody who plays with me is like, man, I can't lay a hand on without him hitting me. I was like, this is the same thing that Bruce came to, and it's a very efficient manner of doing it, but it takes a long time to cultivate your range and your timing,
Right.
you know, in that
Yeah.
long range sparring game.
Yeah.
Now, that's different. It's a different feel when someone walks up, pushes me, says, fuck you, and swings at me. Whoa! Right? Because, like I said before, I'm a good person. I need orientation time in an attempt to de-escalate. Why? Because mama raised me to be a good man. And I just ain't going off and shooting somebody, hitting somebody, or stabbing somebody. Like in class, everybody knows that he's the bad guy, but you don't in real life. And you know what? Sometimes good men have bad days too.
Yeah.
And so you cut me off, I flip you off, and this, that, and the other. And so when we look at our fight situations with a certain amount of realism, it helps us deliver a better product. And it helps people have a better sense and command of themselves, you know? As opposed to, you know, you have to take into consideration and be, if we're not cultivating something that gives us a sense of better self through martial arts, a higher self, right? If we haven't raised our consciousness, the old motif of the Kung Fu master,
Yeah.
that we have evolved to a level of enlightenment if we can't control our own emotional barometers. If I can push your button, what does that say about you? And so if you can't recognize that someone's having a bad day and de-escalate, you're not worth your weight in salt as a martial artist. You're just short in ego and looking to prove yourself.
Yeah. So listen, are people doing enough? People in the Jeet Kune world, are they doing enough to actualize this whole thing about personal expression? Or is there?
I would say that it's probably the last. I mean, I see it because I'm an observer. I don't post a lot in those groups, but I observe. I think MMA's arguments when they argue with each other, I think that is on purpose because it creates viewership, you know? If the Hatfields and McCoys, if this style versus that style, if they don't like each other, there's always going to be this, you know, you don't see anything anymore like good old George St. Pierre and somebody fighting there. Hey, thanks, man. Love you. You got great stuff. We beat each other up. We love each other, right? You see all this pre-talk and so forth. And I think Jeet Kune play people are caught in this thing, this like constant, like what you're saying, I can't do what Bruce is doing because that's Bruce's experience. But I'm doing Jeet Kune the way he told me to do it. But I'm still intercepting because he wasn't wrong about that. Intercepting is still the best way. It's still, there's no other way. Risk versus reward ratio. If you ask AI or Chat GBT what the best way to win a fight, it would say intercept.
Yeah.
Right? So he's not wrong. He wasn't wrong. It is the most efficient risk versus reward. I can hit and not get hit. Brilliant. And do it before I get hit.
Right.
Better.
You want to hear something funny? I
Sure.
asked Chat GPT, which is better, original Jeet Kune or Jeet Kune concepts?
No, you didn't. No,
Yes,
you
I
didn't.
did.
How dare you?
I did. Yes, I did.
You playing God over
Right?
here. What did it say?
Okay. And it said, as a writing model, I cannot, something like, as a writing model, I cannot say what is best or whatever. So then I tricked it. I said, okay, well, based on your knowledge of Bruce Lee's concepts and principles, right? Which way do you think? Yes, I did, right? Which way do you think? And it admitted Jeet Kune concepts is the way he would have gone.
Yeah. But listen, if I can, as they say, dovetail on that, why do you think he originally didn't say he knew? Because he had no experience to research.
Right. I gave it. Yeah. Yes. Because with AI, the quality of the response is based on the quality of the question.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So if you can give it more information, it can come back with a more sophisticated answer.
What you did is you gave it an experience. You gave it Bruce's experience. You said, according to Bruce, according to it, it had no experience, so therefore didn't know. So most people, as I said earlier, I feel, and good for them that they've never been into a fight. I'm not saying that they should run out and get into a fight. But most people should follow Bruce Lee up until a certain point and then do as you say. I heard Burton Richardson. Do I have that? Did I say that right?
Uh-huh.
I always mess up his name. I seen him on your podcast. And he says the same thing in a way, that when you train against somebody, you're not going to train against another martial artist. He's going to train with a certain amount of resistance and isn't going to be compliant to what you want to do. And so you have to know how to train to increase resistance and how to move things in a way that works for people's progression, where they can escalate themselves up on the thing, in which case should evolve into the point where I see violence happen before it happens. So now I can intercept either by stopping a fight or the first punch. If violence is having a good day, you don't see it punch. If you're out with your lady, your kid, you're doing your thing, and how you boom, whoa. Yeah. Who are you fighting? Violence. Violence ain't playing. Most people fight martial artists.
Right. Yeah. So you know what that puts me in mind of, because I made some notes off a part of your website, right? So it says superior training doesn't always mean stronger, harder, or faster. Most of the time, it means smarter. I found that if we could train the context in which we used our training with more accuracy, we wouldn't have to learn a million different moves. This is simple but not easy. And I immediately thought, what you're doing there, what you're expressing there, is what Bruce Lee called approximating the reality of the situation.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, yeah.
Why have I never heard that? That's why you're Dwight Woods, baby. That's why you are who you are.
Yeah. Right.
Approximating the reality of
the situation. That's how your training scenarios should be. It was all part of Bruce Lee's imploring people that they train more realistically. Right. And so I'm paraphrasing it, but I like to express it as approximate the reality of the situation. And I read your website and I was like, that's what they're doing.
Yes, because in religious terms, in like the church, they'll use this terminology called your walk with Christ, your walk with God. And I looked at it like that. What does your daily walk look like? Are you a human resource person who collects money for a living? And so this is important because it's part of my package, not just my Jeet Kune, but encounter violence and looking why I'm using Jeet Kune. Not just because most people don't know what Jeet Kune is. Most people, when I say counter violence, at least they ask, they have an idea, it's an itch that, So I could tell them I'm doing Jeet Kune and it's from this guy, Bruce Lee, and blah, 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 blah. And they still wouldn't have any idea what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? But if I explain to them, first of all, tell me what you do. Oh, well, I work in human resources. Oh, you hire and fire people for a living, huh? So when that disgruntled employee gets fired, where do they go? They go to the human resource office.
Right. Yeah.
So do you have a manner by which you can recognize violent cues? How upset is this person that they're losing their job? Does security follow them out? Do they know where you live? Are you trained in any immediate flinch response training? So we'll do stuff like, because if you ask this, let's say 35-year-old human resource manager this question, right? This woman is a human resource manager, and if you can solve her problem and put her mind at ease, she'll bring you into her company. You have the opportunity to reach all kinds of people. How many people in that company have kids, do you think, that will come to your school?
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So you can put your energy into asking what Bruce did or didn't do, or you can put your energy into reaching people with some of the basics of what you know. This will help you be a better instructor. Reach people with the basics of what you know. Start with range, identifying, de-escalate, try to talk your way out, move your feet so you're not nervous. Meet people where they're at in this place, where they understand. I don't understand a pak sao or a lap sao. To them, that's the furthest thing from their mind. They just want to know, can I make it home to see my kid? And so if you start there and you say, I want you to intercept that person's intention. You may not be skilled enough physically, but
Mhm.
if you have enough will instead of skill, I can save you. But I have to have, you know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
start this conversation. This woman will leave talking to her friends and everybody about you. Or you can show them all your Bruce Lee memorabilia.
Listen,
Just,
that HR person sounds like somebody who could end up with a Focus franchise in Arizona.
well, you know, I'll be honest with you. We do have instructors throughout the country, but I don't charge them anything. I don't take any money from them. I don't do anything. This is not about Mike VanBeek. It's
Yeah.
about helping people who are looking to change their disposition, change their outlook, and change their sense of self.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
I was going to ask you that. If you had to boil it down to one thing, the greatest thing that you could help somebody to develop, would it not be self-confidence?
Absolutely. Self-value.
Yeah.
Yeah. A man named Will Chung, whose grandfather was one of the greatest Hapkido Taekwondo guys. And he has all this lineage in martial arts. He came to see me when he flew into Chicago, and he came in to see me. We hung out for a while, and you could tell he was a well-traveled person who went across the country and helped people with their business. And he said to me, he said, Michael, and he's seen it because I expressed to him some of how I came up and my upbringing, and I don't know why, but and he said it like this: a daily nutritional delivery of self-value. He said it as if it was part of a diet. And I never looked at it like that before. And it
Right.
kind of, gave me a
Yeah.
shot to remember. Like, I remember that one.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, how easy it is to be self-talk. Because we're always critical of our own performance. Like someone could say, Dwight, man, you're in great shape, but you're still going to be the one who's going to be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, man, like my kicks could be tighter, man. I'm feeling Father Time's undefeated, man. He's coming after me, you know?
Yeah.
We all face our own things.
My condition sucks compared to Mike VanBeek's.
Right. So we all beat ourselves up, right?
Yeah.
So I spend my spare time volunteering in drug courts and special needs.
That was going to be my first question. Actually, my first question to you, I had a whole system set up for talking to you, and we've not, and now I'm going to go to it.
Okay.
What is a peer recovery specialist?
A peer recovery specialist is it's like a healthcare worker, but based on experience. So you couldn't be one without experience. It's like it's saying, I can't have you be a Sifu unless you've got a couple fights under your belts. Same. I'm a certified healthcare worker, but I'm also a peer recovery specialist, which means I'm an addict. Which means which means you've done the things.
You know what they went or are going through.
Ish, right? In other words, I'm like your doctor and your lawyer. I can't convince the judge of anything, but you can't lie to me. So I'm gonna prepare you for when you get out into the world, because the world in jail and in our surroundings, in our fixed environments, we have things that are dictated to us. We eat like when you're a kid. You have your parameters set for you, or what you can do, what you can't do, what your dinner, all that stuff is determined for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what you wear, everything. Right? And so it is the way it is. When you can't take care of yourself, you're put back into an environment where you're treated like a child, where you're told what to do, how to do it, when you can eat and you can't eat. And as you start to build life skills and go back out to the world, you forget that addiction is hunting you. And addiction is usually a byproduct of an unsolved mental health issue of problem solving. And so we have to prepare people, much in the same way you're preparing people to fight the battles of physical harm. We're preparing people to fight the battles of life harm, like getting the mail. You know, for most people, it's just pieces of paper. For an addict who's trying to get their life back, it's a reminder of how many people I owe money to, so I don't even want to get it. Right? And so sometimes, you know, so I work in a lot of places where self-value is void. They're scraps, man. They're scraps. I'm an addict. One lady, in the article that just came out last week in the local paper, one of our clients was bragging to us. She said in a meeting, guys, I opened up a bank account. I got $1 in it. We were like, I was so happy for that girl. I ain't even gonna tell you why I was so happy for that girl.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I want to ask you a broad-based question about what, like, the statistics for violence in the country. All right. I mean, like what's the major type of violence in the country?
Well, it depends upon what statistics you go to and what
Okay.
context you look up. The Federal Victimization Survey Act provides the general public with a whole schematic of different crimes.
Okay.
Now, I talk about this in the book, and when we talk about statistics, we talk about varying degrees of crimes, and there's a whole bunch of agencies that are dedicated to the gathering of these numbers and to the interpretation of what those numbers mean.
Right.
And to more of your question, however, the point of solving each of the questions you would ask about the numbers is always going to be tied to something else. So if I need more money for something, I'm going to look in this area. If I need more funding, yes. If I'm looking to prove a narration, I'm going to look in this area. So you would say, what is the most graphic? What city has the most gun use?
Right.
Well, then I'm clearly everybody's guns. Yes, the availability of firearms makes violence's job extremely easy. There's a force multiplier in play, and it trumps everything. It's a projectile weapon that can hit from anywhere, and it's a very difficult weapon to defend against.
Mhm.
And so, right, that's the big threat. That's the big fear. But you have to start people and bite them off where they can chew. If you give them too much, so the biggest threat isn't always the biggest concern. So the biggest threat may be, and it may be determined based on the area you live in. So I've lived in Chicago, Illinois, the major city of Chicago. I lived there for quite some time. You would think that handgun use is the number one, but not where I lived. Where I lived, train violence and late night drunkenness. So those types of disorderly conduct were more prevalent than gun violence. If I want a gun violence, I'm going to Inglewood. So it depends. So in other words, let me say it like this. If I was to say to you, there were 100 shootings in Chicago last weekend, I wouldn't be too far off, first of all. Secondly, right? Secondly, and I just left it like that, you'd go, well, dang, I ain't going to Chicago. But if I told you those shootings only happened between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. between the streets of 70 or 59th and 96th,
Right.
then you go, well, that changes so much.
And then on
this is the
Saturday
problem
night.
looking at statistics.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the general concern of people is a lot of, for their children, I want them to have better self-esteem and be able to stand up for themselves. Because a lot of parents can see it waning as generations go. Because, well, they got Amazon and lattes and everything comes to the door and they've never had to go without. And so parents are a little fearful that, hey, I don't want my kids to go without, but I don't want them growing up soft either. I want them to be capable individuals who handle themselves and don't need X, Y, or Z and can be self-sufficient in that area, because we may come a time where police are, how long are they going to get here? And I need to be defended now. And so that's
happening now.
Yeah, that's the general feeling I get. Now, I do a retreat every year, and I got that idea from Mr. Vunak. I do a retreat every year, and this year's retreat is the Ultimate Weapons Weekend. Now, I've said this about business before, and I'll say it again. There's two ways to do business, and one is you can make something and then convince the people that they need it. You see this with government and big business. They'll buy something and tell you need it. You have to get it. A good businessman who's looking to serve goes out and asks people what they need and then delivers that. And so the feedback I get, and you have to meet them in the middle because they don't really know, but they have a general concern.
Yeah.
So I know you're looking at the UFC and thinking that that's what you need, but we can't really do that. It takes about 3 hours a day training for about 5 years in your mom's basement, and then you can consider it, right? So the general feeling is I want to be safe and secure without the need of the police. So I need to know that I can save myself and my children and be capable enough in such time that police come, right? Because if you're looking about martial arts, you do have a huge faction, Dwight, that spends all its time in the scenery of martial arts. Not what Bruce said, right? In the application of this in reality, you used another word, but
Approximation of the reality.
approximation.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, in my opinion, while you can who bud all day long, and it's a great way to train, and I do energy drills to the nines, but eventually you have to go through it to come out the door on the other side and apply that energy drill into a situational context that says this is where I'm using the ability to read energy, or else it's just a inside party.
Yeah. Huh. So let me ask you this. My understanding is that we have out there in society, we have the people who are UFC fanatics, and then we have the people who are Cobra Kai addicts, right? But those two are not the same.
Why?
So what is that? Why are people interested in why are there probably similar amounts of people interested in these two versions of martial art? What's the appeal?
I think personality would dictate that, just like liberal, conservative. It's usually a personality trait. You know, some people are more exploratory. I happen to be a Gemini, so I'm both. You know,
Really?
I believe in the arts. I believe in
When's your
music arts.
birthday, Mike?
What's that? June
When's
19th.
your-
I'll be 53 in a couple of weeks here.
Mine's June 2nd.
Happy birthday, brother.
Yeah, yeah.
Gemini,
And I gotta tell you this, right? I was made to understand that Jorge Masvidal trained with me when he was like 10 years old.
I believe this. Miami boys, you Miami boys. You know, you stay tight down there. Hey, I seen George run up on Jake Paul because he was in Miami. He was like, "Don't you come to Miami, bro?" Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I want you to tell the audience anything that comes to mind, but a story of transformation, either a personal story or one of your students, you know, or somebody.
Yeah, transformations. You know, physically, or just
either, yeah, or the whole package. You know.
Yes. You know, I have a lot of stories like this, and I have a lot of stories in both men and women of all different ages, where having and I'm not I don't know that I can take credit for it, but I think it's providing people with a vehicle of transformation, and I think martial arts does that. To a level unseen by sports or anything else, like high school sports. Like, you can learn how to do a great slap shot, but this class back here is going to teach you more about life and handle the perils of life than learning how to throw a slap shot. Now, I'm sure there's value to be gained in team sports and so forth, but I think when you're a good instructor, you're a good Jeet Kune instructor, you have a heart for people. You have to get away from it being about you to have that experience of transformation within the people around you. You can't be, oh, it's this Jeet Kune Do, it's that Jeet Kune Do, and everything's in. Stop. Take your name off it. Just put something, you know what I mean?
Right.
Make it about the people who are walking through your door. And listen, the more you teach people how to fight, the less likely they are to get one. And why is that? Because violence can sense it. Right? So take the fighting part away. Okay, so maybe you're the best JKD guy in your county. Fantastic. High five. Cool. Now what? Now you have to get people to have transformations, whereby the biggest transformation is, I believe in myself.
Right.
Now, skill and will, because if all you have is skill. So the biggest transformations I've seen have been in people's belief in themselves, the will. I can do this. Not only make it to class, not only complete the program, but I believe that I can fight for my life. I have a 16-year-old girl who started here when she was 12. She's an assistant coach now. She works here. She's a phenomenal young lady. And a couple of years ago, her mom brought in a letter that she wrote when she was been here about a year. And it was a letter about a mentor. It was me. And this has been time since past. But in reading this letter, she was saying things that I had said to her, and I had never heard myself talked about like that.
Right. Yeah.
When you hear your own words being written by somebody else, it's a very sobering thing.
Yeah.
And so I would walk up to her and I would say things like, because she was a big girl at the time. You could tell she was in band. She, not everybody's a football player, and those people who aren't wrestlers, football players, and cheerleaders, they come to martial arts. Everybody else joins football and wrestling and crush everything and rah, 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 right? The people who aren't exactly that confident in themselves go to martial arts because it's a vehicle of self-exploration. It's a place where nobody knows me outside of school. It's a place where I can develop and create a tribe of people, yes? And so you look at the qualities and characteristics that go into that, and you'll get letters like that. You'll get those transformations. You'll have grown men contact you and say, man, thanks, man. And when people come into me, especially in the adults, they'll say to me, I want to be better. Yeah, me too, bro. Me too. Mm-hmm. Right? And then you say, we can do this together. And let's go. And so while you're in here, we're talking about ex-wives. We're talking about work. We're talking about things that kick your ass. The fight's easy, man. The fight's easy. Brother, we've been doing this for 50 years. Come on, man. The fight's easy. And the reality is you get into a fight, you're going to be so good, you're going to smoke this guy, go back there and go, I don't know what happened, but the adrenaline, all the things. And we can break that down and we can teach them. But at the end of the day, it's them showing up to put the fragility on the line, to expose themselves, to become better people. And you get to be a witness and a conductor and a guide to that as an instructor. And to create a vibe and a family where it's not uncommon to see a grown man shed tears while he's hitting that bag. You understand? It ain't uncommon right? Because these men it's either this or alcohol, some bullshit pool league or bowling club midlife crisis.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, we're making jokes about it, but you're talking about one of the most serious things in life, really, right? But so I got to ask you, because if you let's say if you listen to media, to mainstream media, and if you listen to your friends who don't think too deeply or what have you, they don't seem to have a whole lot of faith in the country, right? As somebody who is literally in the mix of it, in the mix of improving citizens of the country, what is your feeling about the message of self-improvement getting through to the people at large?
I think it's going to be more and more of a difficult struggle. I think that there's always going to be, I think the system feeds to feed, like you need weeds in the garden to have a gardener. People being self-sufficient is not a conducive business line for government. Right. It means less acronyms, agencies. Right. If the people are efficient and they can, right? But we outsource. When we're talking about self-dependency, you outsource your health. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm a big mud medicine guy. You know what I mean? I believe in alternative medicines. But I was a product of Ritalin and early prescription overdoses and so forth. So I think that we outsource our safety to agencies. Now, I'm not saying those agencies are important. You need hospitals, you need police, but the more and more you outsource your ability to function as a person, the less independent you become. And I think there's a business model for keeping people in the grip of need, like I think prescriptions, right? There's a need for some, but a lot of them are being used to manage pain rather than heal pain. And I think there's money to be made. And where there's money to be made, we're in a business where we're trying to help people. I would love to go out of work if there was no violence, brother. I swear to God.
Right.
I would love it. I would love to be put out of work tomorrow.
Right. So there's always going to be a fight.
Yeah, depending. I mean,
there's always going to be a fight, but it's a worthwhile fight, isn't it?
Yeah, we live in a polar world. And maybe we're on the side of good, maybe we're on the side of the bad. Who knows? Depends upon what news channel you watch, I guess. I really don't involve myself in that stuff because it takes me to a dark place, brother. You know what I mean? Takes me to
Yeah.
a place where I don't want to be angry, man. I love the people in my life. I should be dead. I have an amazing life. I get to do what I love. I have all this stuff. And again, like I said, I'd hang it up tomorrow if we didn't have that place, but we do. And it depends upon who has the reins. Some people will say if this political party has the reins, we're perfect. Some people will say it's this. During 9/11, I thought the people during 9/11 were working in that Patriot Act were not for the benefit of the people. And I told the people in legal terms that was not healthy, because I could arrest you on a domestic violence charge and forbid you for your Fourth Amendment right to the Constitution, your right to due process. I can hold that back if I arrest you as a domestic terrorist, and I can do that under any circumstance. I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. Yes, and then same thing now. Now during the Democratic thing, you'll tell people, say, listen, it's clear something big is happening, and this WEF guy and all this other stuff. And so it depends upon who's holding the rein. But I think the fight that's always going to be there is the fight to be free and independent. Can you cook your, and I don't mean to sound like a survivalist, but kind of.
No, because
you have to be able to cook your own food, defend yourself, have a clan and a tribe.
I had this thought the other day that one of the secrets to survival, or one of the solutions, is to get yourself to the point where you are relatively untouchable by what goes on out there. You know what I mean? Because if simple example, if the price of eggs goes up and unfortunately it affects you personally, then you got a problem. You should be living life at the level where if the price of gas goes up and the price of eggs goes up, okay, it's not the most comfortable situation for everybody, but you're at a level where you don't have to change the eggs that you were buying, and get the inferior product or what have you, right? I was because I think about these things, and that was a solution that I came up with, getting yourself to that point. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think you'd be smart to do that. I think victory favors the prepared. I think that was something that Bruce was really, he was thinking about things happening that he had never seen happening, because he was preparing himself for the unknown. Yeah. And I think if you follow that linear logic, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to have a few extra pounds of chicken in your freezer. You just makes you smart.
Yeah. Hey, let's be silly for a second here, right? And indulge in the what if, right? So what if Bruce had lived, right? Okay. What direction would he have gone in? Come on, give it your best shot.
Yeah, I think he'd be a Hicks and Gracie kind of icon, right? Like he would have, like if you look at where he was at with jiu-jitsu, I mean, it wouldn't be Vunak and Matt Thornton and those characters that brought jiu-jitsu to the forefront. It would have been him. All the people that made their success creating a new evolution, he still would have been that person. I don't think he would have hit Park anywhere. I think certain JKD people hit Park. They hit Park on Bruce's experience, right? Yeah. Bruce would have never stopped having a new experience to research. A lot of people, I got a black sash and Jeet Kune, and so full stop. So I'm just going to keep reiterating what I know. Bruce was the type of person who would have found everything that we know that we give this person credit for. Bruce would have been the dude. We'd probably been sick of him. Like this guy, take a little for us,
Yeah. Mike, I love how you just naturally come up with your own euphemisms, your own proprietary language. A lot of people put Jeet Kune in Park based on Bruce's. That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant. I love that. Okay, so all right. So let's start to wrap this up then. So since I am a fan of your writing and speaking style, okay,
thank you, sir.
Book number 2.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's I was working on that a little bit ago. It's called Becoming Violent. Okay. This is War Room is the book you have to write the next one. There's no stories of any of my fights or any of my story in War Room. It is very basic I tell a couple stories, but they're very directly meant for the context of the lesson we're talking about within the book. And it's a very, very simple 100-page, easy read book that's meant to give you the brass tacks of my experience and how I research it.
Right.
This Becoming Violent is showing how I turned from being a person who was scared of his own shadow, who enrolled in martial arts because I was so afraid of all the bullies. I actually had to become violent with myself and look at myself in the mirror and hate myself. There was one point in my life where, the gun was against the head kind of thing. I'm an addict on the streets, and I had to become violent with myself. My father left when I was a kid. I lived with a black family for a while. We did a lot of, or at least we stayed there most of the time, as far as I can remember. And so I wasn't born in the suburbs of a privileged anything. And at my very first, and that's how the book starts off is the profanities. Fuck you. Get out. As my sister is cocooned in my mother's arms. My father's packing his bags in his sheriff uniform. He's a cop. He's throwing stuff. He's yelling, and I'm an apparent silent witness to it all. This is the backdrop of my very first memory. And the book is about the development of me choosing to not confront my own demons and choosing to be a victim of, and therefore a beta male who manipulated people for his own desires. Instead of dealing with his problems, he escaped them and used drugs, and how I had to become violent to get sober, how I had to become violent to face my demons. And so the book is called Becoming Violent. And when I became violent with myself, I became the best defense against myself. Like you said, re-engineering, you said? Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So the book is about that, and the book it's a book that's about me and how I became how I came to this level or where I'm at. But it's also a martial arts lesson book, so each chapter has a lesson behind it.
Okay.
Yes, it has a martial arts lesson to it.
That in my book, which is nowhere near as polished and professional as yours is, I actually do. Right. There's at the end of every chapter, there's a little Johnson box that talks about the lesson learned from the story that I just told in it. Yeah.
I like that. I like that, Dwight.
But I gotta do what you do and get it because right now it's a PDF. If somebody sends me $9, I send them the PDF of it. It's terrible marketing. I gotta become a Mike VanBeek of JKD marketing, because let me tell you, Wednesday I didn't talk about it that much on Wednesday, but as I was doing the broadcast, I was thinking about your book and about how this is a Jeet Kune book, but it's one of those where the Jeet Kune is invisible.
Yes.
But it runs through the course of the book. Everything.
I'm glad you see that, brother. Thank you for that. I want a copy of your book, and we'll talk in a minute, and I'm gonna hook you up with how I did that. When take your book, well, I'll help you with that, brother.
Okay. All right. But yeah, we should yeah. Okay. All right. So listen, it's available on Amazon, correct?
Yes, you can also go to my website at focuscounterviolence.com. We have videos up there for sale. We talk about Jeet Kune in a lot of those videos. We also have an ebook. So War Room is available on my site, ebook for like $10. Like you said, $9. It's on there you can download it, any video you like. So you can get War Room Counterviolence Playbook there. And if you're a Jeet Kune person, you might appreciate it from more of like you said, a practical application.
Yeah,
that's what I tried to provide.
Yeah, I love it. It was fun getting into it. I would read it on my commute to my private client, because I'm on the train and the bus, right? And to me, it was so appropriate because he lives in the part of town where you gotta get off the train in one section of town and get on the bus and then head east towards the ocean. And literally, when you cross over Biscayne Boulevard, everything changes.
It's not live, bro. It's not live. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The vibe changes completely, and now you're on the causeway, and you can look north and south, and across the water, and you see the Fort Lauderdale skyline, the Miami skyline. So you know you're going into a better part of town, right? So reading this was the best accompaniment for that commute, man. I really appreciate it.
Can I ask you a couple questions, Dwight?
Yeah.
Um, you've been doing this podcast a while now. I was on it like 2 or 3 years ago, I think. How is it helped your overall opinion of Jeet Kune Do?
Well, the podcast started accidentally, if not incidentally, right? A shout out to Jerry Winterfeld, because of something that Steven Crowder said about Bruce Lee that I didn't appreciate. And I always knew in the back of my mind that there's so many people doing such great things in the Jeet Kune Do world, but you don't know about them because the Jeet Kune Do world is overshadowed by the persona of Bruce Lee. And then it's also overshadowed by anybody in the JKD clan who was fortunate enough to make it onto the pages of the magazines, right? Which then leads to putting out a book or what have you, right? And more power to them because they did what was necessary to get that clout, let's call it, right? But there's so many other people in the JKD world. And so one purpose of the podcast is to bring as many of those people out into the public, so to speak, as I can, right? And so I was at CLAT camp at the Inosano Academy a couple of months ago, and turned out that I was the most senior person there, not by age, but by the amount of time as a student of his. And so we were talking about it afterwards, and I realized in the 40 years that I've been with Dan Inosano, he has had a singular message, which is this: learn as much as you can, develop as much as you can, and be the best version of yourself that you can be.
Amen.
That's it.
Period.
That's it, right?
How do you argue with that?
Okay.
How do you argue with that?
You know what I mean? So my podcast is designed to bring these people who are trying to be the best versions of themselves, and what we all have in common is Jeet Kune Do, whether it's from Bruce Lee, from Inosano, from whoever, right? So that's the mission.
Well, let me thank you for that mission, because I'm going to tell you something. As I stepped out of Jeet Kune Do and, I got involved with, tactical people, Navy SEAL guys, guys who left the SEALs to start up their own contracting company. I had a fellow who knew all these people. There's a guy named Phil. He used to train with Danny and them. Phil, he lives in the UK.
Phil Norman?
Yes, Phil Norman. No. Not Phil. Phil Norman trains at CSW, doesn't he?
No, Phil Norman is Ghost Combatives out of the UK.
Yeah. He teamed up with Lee Morrison.
Is it or are you talking about Andy Norman?
No, Phil.
No, Phil. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I went out, I would see people. They didn't leave Jeet Kune Do. They just expanded their repertoire of what they were going to use Jeet Kune Do against.
It's the invisible Jeet Kune Do that I talk about.
Right. And so when I went over there to the UK people or to the Amsterdam group or the combatives group or the crowd, whatever group I was going into, everybody was overwhelmingly welcoming. And I think it was because I was a self-described Jeet Kune Do person, as someone who's coming in and recognizing some of their talents and just going, man, you guys really preemptively strike. And preemptive is another word for intercept. What point of pressure do you do that? Do you do that from boxing or do you do that from posture? And they're like, no, we do it from posture. Like, hey, I like that because we don't really talk about that in martial arts because everybody's here. Right. And so they gave me another place to train, another avenue to explore. And it became, so I've been on podcasts overseas with all these groups of people. had my book endorsed. They've been very welcoming. And it was one of the things that I missed in Jeet Kune Do, because everybody's like, Mikey, Jeet Kune Do is better than yours, right? It's original versus concepts versus contemporary versus. It was never about, because everybody was trying to say who did Bruce better. They never became concerned of who they were doing. They were making themselves better.
Right.
Like the best versions of themselves is not the best version of Bruce Lee. The best version of you is you.
Right.
It's not Bruce. It's you. Right?
Yeah.
And so I want to thank you for bringing those people together so they can hopefully open up. And like I will say people like Nick Ellis, who's a good friend of mine. I think he's a good representation of that opening welcome. I think there's a ton of people in different JKD arenas that prescribe to your thought process. It says it might not look like Bruce, but it's JKD, baby.
Right.
It might not have the same taste, but it's the same path. It's the same exploration of process and what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and that's tough for some people to handle. The whole letting go, right, of the Bruce Lee influence and just being yourself. Because it's almost like they don't realize who did Bruce Lee try to be but himself. So that's that's one of the biggest takeaways that you should have if you are a true descendant, if you are a true follower of Bruce Lee. One of the biggest takeaways is that you got to be yourself.
How much thee, how much me, right? How much Bruce, how much influence. Like for him, I'm heavily influenced by Bruce Lee, but that doesn't mean I do what he does. There's you know how many musicians are influenced by musicians outside of their own musical arena?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? I heard one rock and roll guy say, I'm influenced by this jazz guy. I don't play that kind of music, but he influenced me.
Yeah.
I hear this all the time from musicians.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You hear it in poetry. You hear it in writing. You hear it in all of the. They're influenced by people who don't do exactly what I do.
Right. And when you hear that, you realize, right, that the people in JKD who have come to that point of realization, they're the real artists. They're the people for whom Jeet Kune Do really is an art. The rest of them who are like, oh, well, it's got to be this and it's got to be this because Bruce said, come on, man.
That's counterfeit, bro. That's counterfeit. Counterfeit. I mean, I believe in trapping, but I just don't do it the way he did it in 1960. I don't think it happens that way. I don't think violence blocks. I don't think so. This is my experience. Right.
Because that was one of the things in the book that I really honed in on, Mike, when you talked about the art of violence evolving. And I was like, oh, well, if the art of defending or the art of countering violence does not evolve alongside it.
Fact. Right. And so you have to know a thing or two about violence. You have to know that violence doesn't care if it gets hit. As a matter of fact, it's not going to block your trap. And let's be honest, if you're a good Jeet Kune Do guy, the trap is an interception and should not be. You can't hit someone and block at the same time. So if you're trapping someone on the interception, then they're in process of hitting you and shouldn't be able to give you a second hand, two hands, right? The second hand is only a result of someone teaching you to block. Most people wouldn't do that. My experience.
Yeah.
When I trap people and I hit them, boom, I either hit them or they slip.
Yep.
I never get that hand except from another martial artist. You know how many times I played with other people and they go to trap me and I slip instead of block, and then they wait for the hand, it doesn't ever show up, and they don't know what to do at that point.
Because they got too caught up in the technique, right? They got too caught, and they never examined that whole second hand trapping thing. And so what do? They do the pak sao expecting to be blocked.
Expecting.
What the hell is that?
Right. Bruce expected to hit you.
The purpose of the pak sao is to remove the barrier so you can hit.
Yes, and the barrier isn't removable at the same. It won't. They're not going to block secondarily. That's the way a Wing Chun person would do it. It's not the way a person who means to rape your wife is going to do it.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff.
You can do it. You can do it. It can be done, but you have to modify it. It's like saying, "Hey, I got a 1965 Chevelle in the driveway. I'm gonna put a fuel injector on it." You got to do some modification, bro.
Right. Yeah.
Right. If you want to pass emissions on that thing or whatever,
Hey,
right?
hey, since we're doing a podcast interview and talking about Chevelle, did you see Joe Rogan talking to Chad Stahelski?
No. What do you say?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. You know who Chad Stahelski is, right? The
No, I don't.
director. Yeah, the director of John Wick.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Got you.
Yeah. So he was on Rogan's show a couple of days ago, right? And so they were talking about all the cars that they destroy in the movie.
Joe's a car guy.
Right. Oh yeah.
Believe it or not, Dwight, I worked for my brother-in-law owned a blasting company. Joe Rogan has a 1970 Cuda. He called it the Sick Fish. He had a guy in my area redo the whole car, and I got to be I sandblasted the car for him. Yeah. So interesting story that you bring him up in his cars, but I would never say that, outside of that.
It was a great interview, and I'm just sitting there envious as hell, man, because I'm like, damn, if I could get Chad Stahelski on my podcast, goddamn.
Right, yeah. It's like being on Joe Rogan is like being on Oprah in the 90s.
For sure.
Yeah, it'll catapult you in your business to whoever.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep, for sure.
So if I had one message, Dwight, for your audience, and I think most of those people who are audience, it's like, I don't think you need to be a concert guitarist to be able to show somebody a few chords. So I think you should start teaching early and often, but teach the people. Don't teach. Have your emphasis on who are you teaching, not what are you teaching. That's on what you're teaching versus who you're teaching. And that will direct you on what it is you need to teach. Because some teachers, when they start teaching their art, they go, I don't know what to show first. There's so much stuff. Do I show the jab, the side kick, the this? Who are you teaching? Yeah. So
that's tough. That's tough to come up with. You as an instructor, you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way.
Do it early and often, brother.
Right? Until you get to that realization. I'm telling you. And then, since so many of us in the JKD world, I never lived in California where my teacher is. You never lived in California as far as I know where Vunak is, right? So many of us are non-resident. We're long distance. So sometimes developing your chops as an instructor takes even longer.
Well, it definitely did when we were younger, because you didn't have the medium of this,
right?
Being able to, now, without a doubt, feeling is believing, or seeing is believing, but feeling is knowing, right? When you feel someone's stuff, you can roll with somebody or do energy drills with someone, and right then pick out how long they've been doing it. Correct?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no getting around. And so you have to go through that. And the faster that you put yourself in a vulnerable track, the faster you get through it to get beyond it. So back on that self-value thing, if you really want your self-value, confront, your fragilities in your art. Get out there. Find people like what Danny say. I remember this. Have people that you're better than. Have people that you're equals, your contemporaries, and have people. And if you can keep doing that, you'll stay accountable to being a good teacher, to being a good partner, and to learning.
Yeah. That thing you said about vulnerability, Larry Hartzell used to say something akin to that. Larry Hartzell used to talk about going to something like the heart of darkness or something, right? But like having the courage, right, to put yourself on the line and learn from that.
Yes, I think people but you said something very interesting. You said the courage. That's the same as having the courage to have a new experience, and it may conflict with your old thinking, a new experience, and so we kind of keep ourselves from doing it. And I heard Dustin Poirier say something at the end of a fight, and he looked at his after he won. He looked at that guy and he said, "Brother, you did amazing. Without fear, there is no bravery."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, respect.
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
all think that we can be brave, but we think bravery is the absence of fear. The courage is the absence of fear. And we and even if we say it's the presence of fear, not the absence of it, and we say it in a very hallmark way, to sit in the realization of it and go, man, I'm afraid to confront my wife. I'm afraid to confront my boss. I'm afraid to do these things. But now you got some opportunity to confront your fears, and it's not going to be in a martial arts cage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
In an everyday cage.
that whole developing the ability to do the thing that you need to do. I wonder if it's something similar for you, because we're Geminis. So we are invested in owning our own shadows, right? And so when I ran what I call the big school, the best advice I ever followed was this: oh, Dwight, just do all the stuff you don't want to do.
Do it first.
Right? So that's something that's something I use to this day. More recently, I incorporated the thing. It was this. I saw this girl. I think her name is Mel Roberts, and she has the 5 4 3 2 1 blast off thing, right? So it's like you wake up, right? And you wake up, and then for some people the thoughts start immediately. You know what I mean? Right? And so just to get yourself in the right frame of mind, it's like, okay, you give yourself, a period of time, and then it's like, okay, here's the countdown, right? 5 4 3 2 1, bang, you're up and out of bed, and everything that you laid out the night before that's got to be done, you start working on it.
Well, look at what you just said there. You're asking someone to be insightful enough to know that they need to improve, honest with themselves to know that they're not good enough as they are, and they need to improve, and the discipline by which to undertake the accountability of what it takes to achieve those things on a daily basis. Most people turn to religion for the dogmatic practices that it entails, or martial arts, and that's what the martial artist is supposed to be able to do, not to capitulate into a corner of egoic persona whereby, look at me, I'm the best JKD, blah, 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 but more so to the point of where to hold yourself to the accountability to be what Dan said, the best version of yourself. You have to first say that this needs fixing. And not too many people want to do that, right? Like, I'm a program person, so I believe in programs. If you want to lose weight, you follow a program. If you want to make money, you follow a program. If you want to gain muscle, you follow a program. If you want to succeed in martial arts or anything, you want to get sober, you follow a program. And so I believe in that kind of discipline. And without a discipline, a program that you follow on a daily basis, it is easy not to do that. It's easy to stay in bed till the last minute. It's easy not to do the things you need to do. The Bible even talks about it. I think Paul says, why, Lord, do I do the things I know I shouldn't? And why don't I do it? And I don't quote it because from a religious perspective, but that book's 2,000 years old. This ain't a new problem. We've been struggling for not doing what we need to do. And so the question, if it's such an old problem and we still have it, then we must not have come up with a better program other than a program. And so that means you have to hold people other than yourself accountable for holding you accountable. And this is what you find in your closest relationships.
But that's the mastermind. That's Napoleon Hill's mastermind principle.
Yes. The master key system he did.
Right.
Yep. You hold your people. So when you're at your best, you set up your chessboard. So I can have the people around me hold me accountable to being not to protect me and my fragilities, no, but to say, Mike, face your business. Look at you gained 40 pounds last quarter. Get your shit together. Let's go. Right? I have those people in my life now. Before I used to be the loser that held people around him that believed the bullshit that came out of my mouth. I never held accountable. Mike, where you been for 3 days? Oh, there was this fire, and I saved a burning baby, and so on and so forth. Oh, you're such a hero.
Yeah.
Now it's people hold me to the better version of myself because I'm not always going to be in the best attitude, the best frame, the base mindset. I need someone to go, hey, Mike, you're slipping, buddy. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go. Focus. Where you at, man? Where you at? You know, you usually find some people's got them down. Maybe home life's not very good. Maybe money's tight or something. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so holding yourself to a higher accountability and all that stuff. And then when you run into that problem where you would have hit somebody, not anymore.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
anymore. I don't smoke crack anymore, and I don't beat people up anymore. So I got to work on me, or else I'm going to be a wreck. You know?
I hear you. Yeah. All right. Listen, my friend, again, an immense pleasure. And I can't wait for book number 2. So, you know, we don't have to wait until book number 2 to do this again, but we definitely will. We definitely will.
It's been a pleasure hanging out with you, Dwight. You're a legend, brother. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh,
I'm
man.
honored.
All right. Okay. All right. I will reach out to you so that we can talk about the book thing.
Yeah, I want to
Right.
help you along with that, brother. Yes, sir.
All right, man. I appreciate it in advance. Thanks so much.
Thank you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Okay. Take care. All right. Another excellent episode of the Jeet Kune Dialogues, if I may say so myself. Right. Okay. That's Michael VanBeek, focuscounterviolence.com, and the book War Room, available on Amazon. Right. Awesome. You guys hear me say this all the time, but we got some of the coolest people in our JKD martial art family, right? And it really, really is a pleasure to be able to bring them to you. Okay, so that's it. Feel free, share, like, comment, ask questions if you want. I'll review after posting. If there's anything that Mike needs to answer, I'll ask him to get on it. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, on Instagram at Dwight D Woods, at paypal.me/unifiedma, but with Mike's help, not for very much longer. paypal.me/unifiedma Miami, the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1. You can also support the show. Just click, if you're on the YouTube channel, click the join link and you'll see the different levels of membership that we have available. And last but not least, go to jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. The JKD Notables coffee mug, also available in garment form, and a ton of other stuff over there for you. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video, spread the word about the Jeet Kune Dialogues. Next Friday, I have to get a confirmation from my scheduled guest. So hang tough. I'll let you know during the week. By Wednesday, when we do have the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast, right? Until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. Talk soon. Take care.